When I was little, I had an obsession with fresh starts. I always wanted things to be perfect and untarnished, and once that was inevitably ruined, I'd look for a way to press the reset button, to try again, or worse, just abandon the pursuit altogether. The problem is that life doesn't work like that, and all it did was stunt my progress. So this video is about how I dampened that little voice in the back of my head, and am slowly but surely becoming someone who embraces the imperfect, and is invested in the process. This compulsion peaked for me when I was in my first year of high school, so about 13 years old. At which point I literally moved schools purely because I wanted a new blank slate after feeling like I'd somehow ruined my fresh start at the high school I originally moved to. My experience hadn't perfectly aligned with the preconceived idea that I constructed, so I bailed, like I'd done so many times before. Like I'd conditioned myself to do, over and over again. Now in this particular context, that actually turned out to be one of the best decisions I've ever made. Because since that time, I've made an incredible group of friends, made so many amazing memories with, and had so many cool experiences and adventures and, good times with. I met and fell in love with a girl. I got the lead role in my school's musical. I played Gatsby in The Great Gatsby. And I've become an ambassador for an organization I was part of called Top Blokes, which is like a men's mentoring and mental health support program. I've also just become a fairly influential and decently well-liked person in my grade. But all of that stuff happened after 2.5 years of being a social outcast, having my house egged and my ass kicked, failing subjects, at one point having a 63% school attendance rate, and just generally hating life. Because when I did move schools, it was nowhere near the perfect fresh start I thought it would be. Underlying problems didn't just solve themselves. I had to eat shit for a while, and build everything up over a long and painful couple of years. There was no easy way out. There was no reset button. So for the first time in my life, I sat and slowly engraved each letter into the slate, instead of looking for a new one. I committed to the discomfort, and lent into the flaws of both myself and my environment. Moving schools was far from the pristine, fresh start that I was delusionally seeking, but it did give me an opportunity. It presented me the choice, go hard or go home, and for the first time, instead of crawling back home, I went hard. I'm not sure if it was a conscious choice, but my back was up against the wall, and I was forced to actually confront my situation, live through it, and actively work to improve it. Throughout those 2.5 years, the progress I made was far from linear. There was no steady and consistent upgrading of my life circumstances and environment. There were challenges, ups and downs, wins, losses, wins that were actually losses, and losses that were actually wins. There were two distinct, borderline identity crises. It was hectic, and about the furthest thing from perfect. But here's the thing. If an artist sits and stares at a blank canvas, there is still potential for perfection. For the painting to turn out exactly as he sees it in his mind. But from the moment of the first brushstroke, reality takes over, and there's no longer unlimited potential. There is only what the artist can create, and it may not turn out as he envisions. What you have to understand is that perfectionistic drives create paralysis and inaction, which kills progress. If I look at the canvas of my life since I was about 13, it's not a beautiful, pristine picture at all. There's been so many false starts, mistakes, and inconsistencies. Some of the paint is smudged, the colors clash, but at least there is a picture there. One that tells a story. One that may not be pretty to look at, but carries a lot of meaning. Also, yeah, I'm not sure about the whole, artist and canvas analogy. But yeah, I think it does help paint the picture. Look, this is literally the most obvious logic on earth, right? But a blank canvas means that nothing is painted on it. A blank slate means that nothing is written on it. A clear slab means that nothing is built upon it. Yep, we look for color in our lives. We look for impressive structures. We look for stories and achievements. So in chasing fresh starts, you're depriving yourself of the very thing that you desire. If you're always chasing a blank slate or a fresh start, you'll never create anything. And that brings with it a sadness deep enough to drown in. For years, I'd start a project and refuse to complete it, because partway into it, I could tell that the end result wasn't going to be exactly what I'd set out to do. It wasn't going to be perfectly aligned with my expectations. For example, I started 4 different YouTube channels before I started this one. One of them was a music channel. where I recorded and posted covers of songs that I liked playing. And looking back at some of those videos, they were not bad for someone with very little, content creation experience. A lot of the time, I really enjoyed making those videos. I loved learning and playing the songs. I loved editing all the clips together and lining up the audio and trying to make it as cinematic and professional and cool as possible. The relief and the rush of accomplishment that came from finally getting a take that I was happy with after dozens of failed attempts. Finding the perfect frame to use and then designing a thumbnail. I really enjoyed the process, but the outcomes weren't perfect, so I bailed. The videos just couldn't hold up against the ridiculously high standards that my ego had created. And when that narrative was backed up by the fact that they got no views, I just gave up. This blank slate syndrome and perfectionistic paralysis rippled out into every other little obscure area of my life. If I look back to when I was younger, one example that really stands out is the way I played video games. I would constantly restart a video game and try to get the perfect playthrough. That was if it was an action-adventure type game, a story-based one. But if it was me and my friends playing a game and we came back to a game we hadn't played in ages, my friends would all just kind of pick up where they left off, log back into their old account and start playing again. But for some reason, I couldn't. I would make an entirely new account and take myself all the way back to square one. I found something gratifying about it. And I guess that's kind of normal, right? The excitement that comes from novelty. But this was actually a lot deeper than that. It was a strange compulsion. If I didn't do that, I wouldn't be able to play that game. And look, my video game habits as a 12-year-old may have been harmless, but the way it manifested in other aspects of my life was not great, and was certainly detrimental to my growth as a person in a lot of areas, and probably held me back from a lot of accomplishments and probably kept me away from a lot of the experiences and opportunities that I should have, dived into and embraced. But since I've broken out of that, I've actually been able to start accomplishing things. I suppose this YouTube channel is proof of that. As of making this video, I have less than 200 subscribers. So it hasn't been this massively successful endeavor yet, but I kind of didn't expect it to be or intend it to be. I've made a lot of shitty videos, some okay ones, but I've yet to create something that holds up against my standards for the type of content I want to put out into the world. I don't yet have the experiences or the stories or the knowledge. I'm not yet well read enough or well spoken enough to provide the quality of insights and advice that I someday want to. But I'm proud of the fact that I just started anyway. And now I'm 20 videos closer to my goal of putting out a beautifully crafted, articulate, and inspiring piece of content. One of my biggest inspirations for not only creating content, but the way I live life and my mindset in general, is a really small creator on YouTube called Angelo, who gained 25,000 subscribers in the past 6 months from a completely fresh channel. I believe that happened because he deserved it. His character, his story, and the level of insight and inspiration he packs into his incredibly well-produced videos. And I can very comfortably and happily admit that I don't have any of that yet. Also because I'm 15 years old, and I don't know shit. That could have something to do with it as well. But yeah, I need to keep honing my craft in terms of writing and video production. I need to keep reading, learning, thinking, having deep conversations. I need to throw myself headfirst into life and chase experiences. I'll do all of those things for their own sake anyway. But they also happen to be the things that will allow me to start making some decent fucking content. That might seem quite long-winded and potentially irrelevant to this topic, but here's the reason I'm saying it. Ben, from a year or two ago, who had that perfectionism mindset and that odd craving for fresh starts, would have never been able to admit that or commit to this process, and therefore he would have once again settled for inaction and missed an opportunity to make progress and to grow. So overcoming the constraint of perfection is as simple as seeing the beauty in chaos, false starts, failure, realizing that the story and the rough edges and the ups and the downs are what makes things exciting and interesting and worth living, and are what give things meaning. And 2, prioritizing progress over perfection, embracing the journey, and thinking longer term about what you want something to eventually become, opposed to what you expect it to be immediately. Progress needs to become the priority, earning stories, trying regardless, chasing experiences and journeys, not instant perfection. Because as I look back, particularly over this last year, the times where I stepped out and I just fucking tried something are the best moments. The imperfect things, the challenging things, the scary or risky things I did are my favorite memories, and the things that gave me stories that are actually worth telling. They were also things that gave me the best results, the good outcomes, and the rewards that I cherish. And on top of all of that, they were the moments where I grew the most as a person. So apply that to your own life. If there are areas where a lack of clarity, a fear of not succeeding, or ruining a blank slate are preventing you from making progress or stepping out, in that moment, the very act of trying regardless is success.
I'm wondering where the day went. The clouds have me shrouded in grey, but I'm still out pounding the pavement. Drowning the hurt by pounding around some brown paper. Founded a label, now I'm drowning in paper. When out of cool, I'm down with found an escape from work. And I love it, cause that's when your hard work gets you. My heart bursts through my chest, I'm rescued. So forget what the rest, you won't bless to